Maintaining a sense of balance while navigating change and growth in your spiritual life and your mental, emotional self really requires absolute presence for what you really need at any given moment. Hi, my name is Shasta May-Hernandez, pronouns they, them, their, and I am your soul alignment guide, here to empower business owners and leaders in the alignment of their life, love, and work with their values, goals, and soul. Now, in today's video, we're talking about balancing the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical self, and we're just going to touch very briefly on what that looks like, mainly because we're not really coming from a place of perfection and perfect balance. There is no perfect balance, but there is a way to keep things in a sense of balance as you're growing, as you're changing, right? As you're navigating all the shifts and things that have to occur to maintain growth, to maintain profit, to maintain progress in relationships and in life. And as you're moving through your days, it is really important that you take into account all of these aspects, right? The physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self in terms of how you are showing up in the world, how you feel internally, and maintaining a sense of calm and peace within so that it can also be mirrored without. Oftentimes, if you have not found that sense of balance or wholeness within, even you might say union within the self, that it will mirror outside of the self as chaos, right? You will attract more of this energy. You will attract more of the unpredictable shifts, right? And it will cause a chaos within you then in turn. And it's kind of a cycle that you can repeat over and over if you are not maintaining this sense of balance. So it's really about checking in with all these areas of the self. If you do not already have a physical routine that you maintain, and this can be in the way that you wake up, right? Your morning routine, the way that you prepare for sleep at night, you might call this your sleep routine, the way that you physically move your body throughout your day, whether you have a movement practice or a workout routine or some form of athleticism that you perform in on a daily or semi-daily basis throughout the week, right? You might have something that works specifically for you. And it's important that you check in with all those areas of the physical self in terms of how much time do you need for all of those, right? What happens when you physically are not able to show up for some of these things? Maybe something has come up in your physical self. Maybe you are sick or ill or have a condition, something that requires you to maybe shift or change how you show up in your physical routine. So where is there space for that to happen so that you can maintain a sense of balance in the other areas of life? Additionally, you might consider how your morning routine prepares you for your work life, right? Prepares you to show up in your relationships in a more balanced and peaceful, a steady and calm place so that you can be that anchor moving through these areas of life, no matter what happens in those areas of your life. Additionally, you want to think about the foods that you're taking in, right? And how they're nourishing your physical body for all these areas of your life, right? Foods can have such an impact on our health, on our healing, on our ability to show up mentally with clarity, on our decision making, on our sleep, on the energy levels that you will have in order to perform not only in life and at your work and in your relationships, but also in your physical exercise routine if you have one. And also in the recovery, and not only recovering your physical metabolic states, but your muscles, right? Your mental capacities so that you can continue showing up daily. Nutrition is such an incredibly important part of all of this. And building off of the physical self, right? We have the mental and the emotional. And you might think of these two as the same, but in terms of mental processing, we're really thinking about the thoughts, right? We're really thinking about the messaging that you have coming in and going out, right? What are you saying to yourself internally? what is coming out of you externally in conversations, whether you speak out loud, whether you're writing. And how are these two things, right, the coming in and the going out of messages, supporting your life and all the other areas of your life, right? And this can really come into play, especially during times of change and growth. And if you have a history of negative thought processing, right, of intrusive thoughts, of thoughts that are just bringing you down, right, of self-doubt, of shame, any of these lower vibrational thinking habits, they are just habits that can be changed and shifted, and you can master those parts of your mind so that you can then move into a new part of yourself, right? Positive thinking is also just something very simply that you can shift into. But how are you feeding yourself in the messaging that you are taking in? And this isn't only in how you think, but it also is in terms of the things that you are reading, the videos that you are taking in, right? The kinds of conversations that you are having. What are you choosing to take in, not only through your eyes, but also in your ears? All of these things feed those messages within, and you have a choice about what you consume. So really paying attention to what you're consuming and how it's affecting your messaging, the thoughts that you have internally, and what is coming out of your mouth, out of your written word, right? Even in a text, even in an email. And paying attention, observing this part of the self, especially through those growth stages, especially when, you have to shift or pivot. And especially when you're having emotional changes, right? When you're feeling a certain kind of way. And this brings us to paying attention to the emotional self. The emotional self, depending on how you work and your hormonal states and what is going on in life around you and how you've been taught and learned how to navigate changes, life in general, in terms of your emotion, how you've learned to feel and to process those feelings, to face those feelings, to allow yourself to feel those feelings completely and move through them, move past them, and not allow some feelings to be a hindrance or a block in your ability to be able to move forward, to expand, to grow, to scale, right? To progress in those relationships. And really paying attention to that mental part of the self, right? How the messages that are coming in, and being able to then sit with the emotional attachment that you're placing on those thoughts, if you are, and being able to remain a bit detached from some more negative emotional states that might be a hindrance, that might be a block, that might be a limiting factor, that might be feeding limiting beliefs that are not helping you to continue on your path. So really paying attention to not only how you're feeling, but how you respond to those feelings. Not only how you're thinking, but how you respond to those thoughts. Your response really will dictate your ability to maintain a sense of calm, to maintain that sense of balance and be that steady anchor moving through all shifts and changes and growth stages. And then we want to touch on the spiritual self. If you watched the previous video that I posted, we talked in terms of the physical self quite a bit, but I also emphasized the importance of building the spiritual self as the foundation of the self as you show up and navigate this world and this life. The spiritual self is so vast and varied. There are so many different ways and places that you can take this. And if you're working with somebody like me, what we're really looking to promote is a sense of your own identity in your spiritual self, your sense of freedom to be able to explore the spiritual self, to expand the spiritual self in any area that you feel. If that is taking on religion, if that is exploring and learning about religion, if that is learning about different spiritual practices and expanding into those and practicing and playing with them in your life, seeing how you can utilize them in your routines, all of that is okay. This experience that we have in life is a spiritual experience because you are a light being, a spirit within a human form, experiencing life as it is in every moment of your day. And as you obtain more presence with your own light, with your own spiritual sense, and are able to hold on to that presence, to maintain that through all the shifts and changes and growth stages of your life, in your love, in your work, you will find that it is quite natural for you to expand into your spiritual self, to reform this spiritual self, to refine it as you need, as things change, as you grow, because what you may have been into spiritually 5 years ago, even a day ago, may not be what is useful for you now, what is supportive for you now, and what aligns with your beliefs and that deeper soul calling that you have within. If any of this resonated with you, check the link in the description box where you will find a clarity call where we will talk about how my alignment in motion framework will empower you to stay in alignment with the motion of your soul in your life, love, and work. I will see you in the next video.